Hello everyone, we are live and we are having technical problems as per usual. I need to hear myself in here. So do me a favor, if you're watching, could you let us know if you can hear us okay? Carl, could you just say something?
Testing, can you hear me okay?
Good evening might have been better.
Well, all right, good evening.
So of course we are trying to socially distance ourselves. We're here in 1 Trinity Green, rather than doing this remotely, as Carl's from South Tyneside. So I thought we'll do it together, of course, with our COVID policy and socially distancing ourselves. So we've got the camera set back, we've got it all zoomed in, and of course I'm trying to talk to you via these headphones with the mixing desk afar. So let me know if you can hear me okay. We're going to have some fun tonight as per usual. And first of all, there's my mother saying yes, no problem. Thank you very much, man. Right, because I'm going to take these headphones out soon, and Carl and I can just have a chat. Right, what have I got to say? Feedback, Dr. Joe North, really good. You enjoyed that, so well done everyone for tuning in for that and sending us your feedback. Joe really enjoyed it. So we're here again, beer and pizza night. Of course, Carl and I have got water, unfortunately. And let me know if you've got a cheeky beer. And let me know if these times are good for you as well, because we've got another live coming up. We've got Sue Balfour, the CEO of Katie Sue Designs here in South Shields. And Katie's going to talk about the significant tech investment that they've brought in, which has really kind of took their business online. So we'll be doing some of that. Kate Anderson, 2 of my faves. Well, lovely to have you with us, Kate. Maybe one day we'll get you in here, but you are South Tyneside business. Kate's in South Tyneside, isn't she? Yeah, I keep thinking you're over the water still. Yeah, maybe we'll get Kate in, couldn't we? Right, what else we got to do? I'm going live next Thursday. Actually, I'm going to have a cheeky plug. I'm going live next Thursday. It's my 200th episode of Industry Angel. So if you fancy coming on live next week, you can do that. Yes, that's about it. So should we crack on, Carl?
Let's go for it.
I'm going to unplug these headphones, and I'm still watching the comments, okay? So if you're here, let us know. Let us know where you're from as well, because we are across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as per usual, really pushing the envelope for the tech. And thanks, Reese, really pushing the envelope for the tech, which is really stressful. We've been hustling right up to the last minute. I'm guessing that's Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you. Right, I'm going to take these headphones out and I'm going to sit back. Right, this is really weird because I can't hear myself, which is scary.
Well, I can hear you.
You can hear me indeed. We'll be hearing you. I tell you what it is. We've just been having a laugh there because I think the last time we put the worlds to rights, there was a forest involved, there was a large fire, and there was a beautiful bottle of whiskey, wasn't there?
You could say that, yeah. I think that was called a little bit of improving the mental well-being, allegedly, but maybe not the physical well-being.
It was good. It was good. You were sitting on a log, weren't you?
Yes.
It's a very slippery log.
It was
wasn't
a slippery log, but therein lies, I think you were pushing me off all the time.
Tell us a tale about the whiskey, because I love that.
Quick tale, yeah. It was the idea behind taking that nice bottle of whiskey is that it would be about 20 years ago now. A father and I invested in a first year single malt from the Isle of Arran, and it was a brand new opening of a distillery. So we bought a barrel, sat tight for 18 years, and then bottled it. And I thought, as a treat for Ian and our other pal Paul, who no doubt will be mentioned again tonight, I would take a bottle along to enjoy whilst wild camping. And it seemed to go down pretty well.
It did indeed.
It retails for about £150. So some people might say that was a bit of a waste. But
totally wasted on us.
Just drinking that in the woods was what it's all about.
Well, we'll probably go on to that in terms of like mental health and well-being, and making sure from a business point of view that we look after each other, we're always talking and that sort of stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about Carp Away and the things we do.
I'm sure we will.
Carl, hi, good to see you here. Kirsty, hello, there's my school friend Kirsty. Lovely to join us. Thank you so much. We'll be here for about the next 40 minutes, but knowing Carl, it could be 4 hours because he's got so many tales. But before we start on the tale, should we go? I always like to go sort of chronologically. So if that's not a Geordie accent, by the way, right? So let's go right back to the start.
Okay, I won't bore everybody, but I guess in a few seconds, I'm a Mancunian, proud Mancunian for my sins, and relocated in 1999 to the northeast. Do actually regard the place as home now. You know, I really do like it. I like everything about it. The weather's a little bit, you know, not great, but aside, I think everything else, we're very, very lucky. And having worked and lived in other parts of the country, I think it really does take some beating. There's the northeast plug. I relocated to set up a business, which I was involved with for a couple of years. And then in 2003, met Paul, and he had recently set up Urban River, that is basically a marketing and digital design agency. I was at a little bit of a loose end, shall we say. So, cut a long story short, we struck a deal, and I got involved, and the rest is history, as they say. Did I think I'd be there 17 years after? Absolutely not. They say you get less for murder. But that said, I think I've learned a lot. It's taught me a lot. I've spent the vast majority of my 30s and my 40s and into my 50s there. So that's a big chunk of my business life. But it's, you know, I think I proved quite a lot of things for me. That's what business for me is about. It's not actually about proving anything to anybody else. And in fact, that's kind of a bit of life. That's the sort of life mantra I have. I don't do things for other people. I very much do things as challenges, big or small, for myself. And it's very much about setting obstacles, however, as I say, however big or small, to just see if I can deliver that. 3 of us were there in the beginning. Over the intervening period, the 3 directors, Chris then emigrated off to Tasmania and came in, and that was a little bit of a bombshell. He sort of dropped, say, well, I'm leaving, or when are you leaving? Or I'm going to Australia in 6 weeks. So, okay, I suppose it was better than going to the competition across the road, maybe. And then Paul wanted to spread his wings in other areas. And that was approximately 9 years ago. So for the last 9 years, I've sort of owned and operated Urban River as a sole director, which, again, as though those people that are in business on their own, or those people that maybe lead businesses on their own, will know some of the challenges that actually brings.
I'm just retweeting your beautiful voice here across Twitter. It's, you know, you really quickly give us a little bit of
done everything then,
a timeline there, and, you know, literally a couple of minutes, but obviously across that, I think you'd had a few, I'm sure you've had a few hurdles along the way. And I think as leaders, as entrepreneurs, if you like, people who are entrepreneurial within business, I think we learn a lot from mistakes and maybe from other people's mistakes. And it's good to learn from other people's so you can avoid them yourself. So if I had to ask you for a few hurdles, what would they have been?
I think just to buy myself 10 seconds to think about that, and a point there in terms of making mistakes. I'm a big believer in making mistakes, and I think you learn by them. You know, I've always said to everybody around me, and I say to myself, you know, it's good to make mistakes, but learn by them or learn from them, and just don't make the same mistake twice. In terms of hurdles, I think not keeping an eye on sometimes on projects in terms of real slippage. I think that, and especially if you're in a service business, I mean, if you're in a service business, you effectively sell time, don't you? I mean, some people say you sell fresh air, but effectively you sell time. And the thing is, once you've sold that hour, or you sold that day, or you sold that week, you can't get that back. It's not all about making every minute count, and we don't work on the egg timer. You know, it's not about charging every single minute of every day. I mean, prior to this, I came from a financial and legal background when you're filling in timesheets and you're down to, you know, 10 6-minute 10 6-minute segments, which I still really believe is total nuts, in all honesty.
Trying to put an hour down to admin.
Well, exactly. Well, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I think not taking time out and not switching off, I think that running a business, and I've no doubt we'll probably touch on the last 6-9 months, but I think running a business, whether you're there as a team or whether you're doing that yourself, is all consuming. And I think what a lot of people don't tell you about, when you create a business, you create, to a certain extent, a monster. And if you're not careful, that monster and that Frankenstein can run you. There's that, do you work for the business? Does the business run you? And I think most people, if you talk to them, yes, they enjoy it, but that business will run them. And I think, again, most business people are working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks. It's probably the last thing they think about when they go to bed and the first thing they think about in the morning. And I think that it's very, very easy for your life to become the business, rather than actually accepting that business is part of life. And I think that we seem to be in this environment now that if you actually do anything outside of a business, oh my God, you're some sort of weak person. Well, you got to be able to switch off, and you got to have things. So I think that's been a mistake, and not recognizing when you're particularly under stress and when you particularly need to have a break, because I think that that whole idea about how many of the hours that you do is a complete fallacy, because as we all know, that most people are probably they're probably efficient for 5 hours of the day. They may be in the office 10 hours of the day, but on the whole, they're probably efficient for 50-60% of the time. So why not switch off and be efficient with that time doing something else?
We've talked a lot about when we get out into nature. We go for these walks once a month, and we get out in the nature, and there's a dozen of us business leaders that do that. And I bang the drum about this quite often when people say, if I've got nothing in my diary that day, I'll come. And I remember we discussed this, and basically what we said was it should be the first thing in your diary, and work should kind of work around that. Because when we do that day together, we actually come back and we are super productive going forward. We've got so many ideas, and it sounds alien to some to say, take a day off and you'll work better.
Yeah. I think again, there's a feeling that if you're not in the office, then you're skiving, and I think that it's amazing how many decisions or problems that you actually solve in the most inopportune times. You might be having a shower, and you might suddenly have something that comes to you. And I think in reality, for me, that taking some time out of an office environment isn't necessarily taking time out of your business. I think it's just looking at your business and looking at areas of your life in a different way. A passion of mine, which is probably, somebody hasn't paid me to put this in. A passion of mine is motorcycling. It's only one of them. But the reason why I bring this up.
Hang on, how many motorbikes do you have?
Not enough. The reason why I bring this up is that, and I think everybody has their switch off. For me, what I actually like to do is, if I'm riding along, then I switch off from everything. Because if I'm not switching off from everything, I'll have an accident. And unlike a modern car, when you put the aircon on, you put your your music on, you do this, you do that, you're probably concentrating 40%. You talk to any biker and they're concentrating 100%. Yeah. So there's certain times that for me enables me to actually improve which might sound real waffle, but improve my well-being. Obviously, a lot of people run, a lot of people exercise, a lot of people go to the cinema, a lot of people will watch movies, a lot of people will cook. And it's their it's their escapism, and it's their creation of a bubble to get into something that is completely out of what they're doing. I think for me as well, as we were just saying there, that to go and have a walk and have some fresh air and to just knock a few ideas around in an unpressured environment and a non-time sensitive environment very often gets much better results, and I would urge everybody to just try and just take a little bit of time out just to think of issues that you've kind of got, because I think sometimes the harder you try, the harder you think, the more seized up your brain becomes. And I call all these things brain breathing. It's a phrase I bash on about, and it's letting your brain breathe. You've got to give your brain chance to do its thing and not try and force it into something.
You know, I'm laughing and smiling away here, but I'm the worst for this. I mean, I've burnt out like 2 or 3 times in my 30s because, I mean, actually, we've had a comment here from Carl Jerry there. You know, Carl said he's not had a holiday for 8 years. And you can easily get into that. You know, we're in November now. What I've been saying is, right, let's just get through November. Really busy. December, we're going to come off the gas. You know what'll happen? Something will just fill in that little section, isn't it?
The question I would say there is anybody that's not had a holiday for 8 years, and this is not aimed at you personally, Carl, is that is your fault and that's your problem, and I think that is a behavioural issue, because it doesn't matter if you. This is Katie, my wife, and I. When we take time off, we go somewhere. On the whole, and the reason why we go somewhere is because if we just took some time out of work and we sat at home, we would probably work harder than we work at work. So we have to go and switch off and do something. And I think that it's really, really important, because it doesn't make you you've got to recharge the batteries. A long time ago, I used to work for a guy, and it was I had a good job, and when I think back, but he was somebody that he didn't believe that he needed holidays. So because of that, he didn't believe that any staff needed a holiday.
Wow.
Which, to be honest, is a load of crap. I mean, well, I say it as it is, you know. Now that for me actually is a form of bullying. And I actually think that it was very, very naive not to recognize that to get the best out of your team and the best out of the staff, you have to listen to them and you have to understand what makes them tick. And a lot of people do need to go and switch off. It doesn't matter the type of holiday. For some people, they might want to go and spend 2 weeks, get, blasted every night and crash out on a sun lounger. And if that is their way of switching off, then that's right for them, Other people might go mountaineering, or they might go on a cycling holiday, or they might do this, or they might do that. It's what makes people so interesting, isn't it? And what makes them different.
So, Carl, you've just been told there you need to get yourself away on holiday, right? You got permission, right? We'll give you the permission. Carl's going away. Carl Jerry. So you touched upon a little bit there about culture and leadership, Carl. About talking about that particular leader who didn't really recognize that actually the benefits of your staff having a break are actually, making staff feel guilty. What do you do within your business to ensure that culture?
On the whole, despite having a big mouth and a lot to say, I'm probably not really a people person as such, which might sound surprising. I think in terms of all this disc profiling and things like that, probably for the first 15 years, 20 years of my life, I was incredibly shy, and I think needed to develop a confidence because I recognized I needed to do that to get on, whether that was selling something, whether that was developing in my career. I recognized that I had to get out of my comfort zone. And the reason why I'm sort of telling that little anecdote is because I'm probably not the best person to manage people, to manage a team. And I have a very, very relaxed, on the whole, attitude to people that work in the business. Nobody works for me. We all work together. We don't have any kind of pyramid. We don't have any kind of hierarchy. We don't have any kind of structure like that. The way I look at Urban River is it's a group of talented people that get on and do what they need to do. Okay, some people are more senior from a point of view of having been there longer and earn a little bit more money. But that is, I don't have this mentality that if you've been there 30 years, you're at the top of the tree. I don't regard myself as any more or any less important as anybody else. So I think culture for me starts with respect, and I think it's about respecting everybody and to be respected. You know, we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we all have a choice in terms of where we spend our working week, if you like. So I think you've just got to be quite chilled. I think the last that's not to say I don't get a bit controlling over the workflow and in terms of cracking the whip, but I think in terms of people, you know, I think you've just got to, one of the reasons why I went into business was to create an environment that I would quite happily work in and work for, because I'd worked for some awful organisations.
Put the mute button on.
I'd worked for some awful organisations and some awful people, you know, over the years. And I think that you know what's happened with the last 6 to 9 months has probably brought culture to the fore. In the way I see, I mean, we made a decision at the very beginning of the end of March to work remotely. And that has continued to this day. So we're 9 months, nearly 9 months, 8 months on, and not one person has worked in the office for one day. A couple of people drop in and drop out to collect things, and I go and collect bits of mail and things. But on the whole, we've worked remotely. Now, I think my philosophy of that has been pretty flexible in that as long as we don't let our clients down, because we have obviously a number of clients that we need to be accessible to. I've been pretty relaxed about when people actually work and when they need some time off. So if they need time off in the middle of the day, particularly I think when the schools were closed, I think that is right to have that. And I think that you have to recognize that. And at the end of the day, as long as the work gets done, does it really matter when that gets done, how it gets done, as long as it gets done? So I think that's been pretty much the sort of, you know, the culture that I would say that they'd probably say I was a bit of a pushover, but I don't think it's that, because I think when the chips are down, you know, we all pull together. I mean, we coined a phrase in our business years ago about being professionally informal, which sounds a little bit cheesy, I know, but I think it was 2 words that really summed up what we do and how we go about it, in that because we are in a tech or a creative or a design-led business, you know, we can afford to be informal from a point of view of a little bit relaxed. And I mean, I think it's like a holiday camp most of the time, you know, compared to some of the places I've worked. And if you've worked in finance and law and, you know, and other things, you know, it's very, very different. But that said, we're a professional business. The clients that we're dealing with are very, very professional, and we'll have to be business-like. And I think that when the chips are down, you know, we cut the mustard and we crack on and do it. But you can do it in a relaxed environment. You don't have to be, you know, oh my God, you know, and you know, and have an attitude and a chip, you know. And I think it's so we respect ourselves and we respect our customers, and that's it. I'm not some big, you know, guru and some big leader. You get on and do it, and that's what you do. When you employ staff over the years, and you do have some staff turnover, you get some tricky situations. Of course you do, and you get situations where you've got to deal with people. I've obviously got to be quite careful, to be honest with you, because despite being relaxed, I'm quite cutthroat, you know, and everything is black and white to me. There is no grey. So you have to obviously tread very carefully in this day and age in how you deal with things. But I do think that, again, you know, it's just about always trying to step in the other person's shoes.
The really good point. You also touched upon tech then. We've got tech talks here, and Lindsay will be watching, so we don't talk about tech. I'll get a slap. So, you know, obviously you mentioned that you're a tech business, and I'm sure you've implemented a lot of systems in there, especially when you're working from home. You know, I'm sure you've got some sort of project management tools or some communication tools in there. So what have you brought into River to help that?
That's kind of quite interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of businesses have daily catch-ups or twice daily catch-ups or powwows or
stand-ups
that, and they do this and they do that and they do the other. We essentially, and I tend to be involved in them in sometimes and sometimes not. The problem is if I'm involved in them, they take 3 times as long. And what we do is, because I just want to know, the ins and outs. So we tend to have a weekly project update on a Monday morning, which we run through literally everything we're doing and plan the week out. So I think that sort of pulls things together in that respect. And we're just, we're using online, tech that enables us to message and use voice over IP calling and things like that. I mean, we've used Basecamp, which is a project management tool, for 10 years for both ourselves and we'll have for both ourselves and our clients. Problem is you start using these systems and they're very clever and you can't stop using them because you've got such a legacy of content and files and clients and which is fine. But I'm not one for saying 9 o'clock every morning, this is what we need. I think that we, again, the business employs people that can get on with do what they do. We're probably talking to each other indirect or directly, but individually during the day anyway. Carly, who is creative director, who predominantly deals with a lot of the workflow and the work management and account, she'll be touching base with individuals. And then I had a long conversation with our head of digital this morning, Robert, on a pitch. So we're kind of maintaining that conversation and having those when we need to have them. But I don't want to be doing is saying, oh, but we need to be doing this all the time. I think that I'm well aware, though, of course, of people's need to feel supported, and I think that I've always had very much share the problems, and I probably have a weakness that I tend to do a bit too much sweeping up sometimes, and I'll sort of just think, look, I'll just pick that up and you just get on with doing what you're doing. But sometimes I do see that as the role. So we don't use loads and loads of fancy things. People will still laugh at me in that, for example, when we quote jobs, we maintain a thing called the dreaded doc, but that is, it's quite a complicated spreadsheet, but it creates a job number. We log down the client, we log down what the job is, we log down where it's up to, we log down if it's outstanding, we log down if it's been signed off, and it does all the calculations for you, so it can tell you what you've effectively won in that month without using a ledger or anything. Very simple. I like to keep things, it's the old kiss.
I'm a huge
keep
fan of
things
that.
simple. I still very much use lists. I've tried to do stuff on my MacBook. I've tried to do this. I still prefer a piece of paper, writing things down, and as I do it, take great delight in striking it out. And that is obviously a thing up there. I'm wholly unrealistic, though. Of course, I'll have 25 things on my list and I'll only strike 4 off. But it's just different people's mentality. But I recognize, I'm kind of like going down over the hill and a bit old school.
I've mentioned this a few times. Do you write lists down of things you've already done just to scratch them off?
No, I don't actually. No, I don't. No, I see. Well, there you go. No, I've got too many things on my list. No, but
those motorbikes aren't going to ride themselves.
Well, they're not. No, but I think that yes, it is about tech. I suppose one of the other interesting things about our business that I'm not, massively up on tech, if I'm honest with you. Obviously I use it as we all use it, but a lot of what we do is bespoke development. Yes, we design and build websites, and we'll do some very simple sites, and we'll do e-commerce, but then we'll do systems as well. And obviously we do the offline stuff, so we'll do some branding and we'll do some marketing. I am not a developer, nor am I a designer, which, if I thought too hard about that, is quite scary, because I happen to be running a business and owning a business that actually needs people to do what we do. I can't just jump into the hot seat if somebody's ill and say, oh, give it here, I'll do that. And I think that's quite unusual, actually, in that most people that are running a law firm or running an accountancy practice or running an architect's practice or running a tech company have kind of been there and have done it. For me, it's more about running the business. And that's probably why I think our business operates and runs maybe in a slightly different way, because I don't run it as a tech business. I run it as a business. And if I was running a chain of greengrocers, I would still run the business in the same way in terms of using the approach that I use. And I think that's maybe stood us in good stead. I think,
I work with a lot of engineering companies, and I think it's who founded the company. So you might get a great precision engineer who's founded the company, and it grows and grows, and they're still the boss, and then they can jump on a CNC machine and mess about, right? But because you didn't found the company on day one, maybe you're kind of in there to run it. You're not there to do the do.
I've created myself a job.
Right. Okay.
And I think, again, a lot of people that run small businesses, and that's not a derogatory term. I would view a small business as probably anything employing under maybe 50 staff, whatever figure you put on that. In fact, I think if you employ under 10 now, your class as a micro business or something.
Yeah. Tony Robinson would love that, by the way.
Yes, because we all love Tony and micro businesses. I should have shouted for his book. I've already gone through that. There you go. I think that I will have a different approach, but then I think I also recognise that I may also be a bottleneck and a blockage.
Understand that, yeah.
Because I've operated, I've run it. I do listen. I do listen to the team, and I listen to them a lot, because I think that when you find yourself as a sole sort of business owner, if you like, you do have a lot of discussions with the mirror and a lot of conversations with the mirror. And I think at least when there was, certainly when I was in business with Paul, we used to have quite a lot of discussions and debates, and a number of those were heated, and we were only talking about that a couple of weeks ago. But we had a total respect for each other, and we had total different points of view. And it's very much like a relationship. You might have different views, and sometimes it's compromise. And I think that whilst you're there on your own, you don't have to compromise, but that can be quite a lonely journey. But at the same time, I only know what I know. And I think that there is no doubt that any business could be run in a different way. And it might be good or bad. I don't know. But you're right. I haven't sort of come along and look at it as a dev thing, or look at it as as a design thing. I mean, I've come at it very much with a financial brain.
I nearly said as a banker.
Well, and which I think as for me has maybe has enabled us to continue to succeed through what was a tough recession 8 years ago, and to really have a strong game plan this year.
It's interesting because you've got micro businesses, SMEs, larger companies, PLCs. We've both been exposed to them all, but they're all the same. You might look over the fence and think, wow, they do things really good. I mean, Carl's just mentioned there about pen and paper. Sometimes I've been in organizations where they're huge and they're literally run on spreadsheets.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And you would imagine, think, oh my word, there's such a
and I think the irony of it is that large businesses tend to be incredibly inefficient,
right,
and incredibly wasteful in my experience. Sorry. In that, well, I'm not. Yeah, I mean that's not all. But what I mean by that is, in terms of decision-making processes, can be really stretched out, and they can just have a view that because of the way they're structured, you can't really question things, and because you can't question things, we've always, it's always been like that. And it's the old saying, isn't it? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And because people haven't never questioned it, they've never questioned perhaps a better way of doing something which could improve efficiencies. Going back, I don't know when Noah was a lad or whatever, when I used to work in financial audit and management consultancy for my sins, and I worked in the private sector but specialised working in the NHS.
Right.
So my job was to get parachuted into various NHS trusts and did some work for the Department of Health at Leeds as well, and to look at certain financial systems and the way they did things, and to try and improve and make things more efficient. And it wasn't just efficient from a cost cutting, although some of that came out, some people lost their jobs and whatever. But what I used to do is just talk to the people at the sharp end that were doing the do, because they were never listened to. Yeah. And it was amazing how many people that had been doing that job 20 years, nobody's ever asked me that. Well, okay, well, I'm asking you how, I wouldn't even do that. This is how I do my job. So it's dead easy. You just listen to them, replicate what they said, and they would strip 30% efficiency out, get better results, deliver stuff quicker, lower cost, but nobody had ever given them the chance.
Yeah.
And it was only when you had somebody external that could come in and have that dialogue that somebody all of a sudden had that conversation, which made a big difference.
So we're talking there then communication is key, no matter what the size of the organisation then. So, you just said there you have the Monday meetings with your team, but in a large organisation, you might lose that communication because there's that many levels of hierarchy maybe, and you become inefficient.
Well, I think you do get tiers, don't you? But I think that, I can't remember where I look at this on a regular basis, and it might be in the Sunday paper or something where they do a bit of a review of these sort of chief execs or business people each, and their week in the life or whatever it is. And it's amazing that the people that are really at the top of the tree of these big businesses just spend their lives actually talking to their senior team.
Right.
And I think that, yes, you've got that hierarchy, but those successful people are obviously have got their finger on the pulse, because they may not be talking to they're not doing the do necessarily, but they're talking to the people, and I think they're the glue. My role really at our business is very much about the glue to keep the team together. I'm no more important than them, and I'm not necessarily the core. But my job, as I say, is very much, I see it as about that, and to try and maintain what that picture is. I talk in analogies, as and I see staff as pieces of the jigsaw. And if you're the top left corner, you can't see where you necessarily fit in. And I think somebody's got to try and have that helicopter view and look down at the picture and think, okay, well, that's where we need to be, and that's the picture that we can then go and create. Because if you are a developer, you see life through a developer's eyes. You don't see life through perhaps a designer's eyes, or perhaps somebody who's trying to sell a solution to the customer. You will ultimately, as a developer, predominantly, and being a really skilled tech person, see people as an interruption in what you do. Well, they do.
Yeah.
They do. They do. And that's not a criticism, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
Developers are task orientated, they're analytical, they just want to be in a bubble and get on and build and create and develop and make wonderful things. I mean, it still fascinates me how somebody can write a lot of code and it makes something do something when you click a button. I couldn't do that for all the tea in China. But they see people as a distraction to what they do.
So thinking about that, then thinking about writing some code and making do amazing things. What are you really proud of? Have you got like a standout project that you've done across years? It might not be at River, it might be somewhere else, but you've just come away and you've thought, wow, we've really knocked it out of the park there and maybe over-delivered. Are you really proud of something?
Probably two quick answers. I think the first one's a cop-out, and it's not project specific.
Okay.
I think that I think as all businesses, none of us pat ourselves on the back enough. You know, we're very, very self-critical, and it never ceases to amaze me when you actually step back and you look and think, wow, actually we created that.
Yeah.
And I think particularly when you see real results, you know, from clients. And I think that when when clients say that they get that, you know, that they are getting real hard tangible results from what you're doing, and predominantly that the bottom line is sales, you know. So when you're kind of selling that, there are a couple of projects, you know. I mean we created some time ago it's quite a complex bespoke information based system. Well, it's a website, but it's more than that. I mean, it gets a lot of traffic, and it's created to advise and educate and predominantly help the elderly in terms of information. And it's got masses of information on a whole raft of things. And I think that is a good thing, because that's creating some real connections for people that wouldn't necessarily, you know, otherwise be able to tap into certain information. We do create, you know, a number of sort of bespoke applications that are repositioning businesses, that are moving them from being maybe a telephone based business to being able to accept online bookings and you know, to be doing those sorts of things. But I think ultimately the two buzzes I have is, one, it fascinates me how other people make the living, and actually going out and kicking the tires of businesses and seeing what they do and how they do it is brilliant. And I've never worked in a manufacturing organization, but they really fascinate me going in to see manufacturers, because taking this to this is incredible, really, even if it's relatively simple. And I think secondly is when you get, and this sounds a bit egotistical, but when you do get some clients that really do go the extra mile to say thanks for doing that, because I think that we're all guilty of that in this world, that none of us thank our suppliers enough. We just, well, we've paid them, they've done the job, so what do you expect? You know, and it always seems to be a one-way flow, where we as a supplier should be thanking our customers for giving us the business, which of course we should, and of course we do. But I think when it's reciprocated and a customer says, you know, we're working with you, and we've worked with you for a long time because you really deliver, and you know, and you hit the button. You don't always get it right every time, because we never do. But actually, when something does go a little bit pear-shaped, you know, you're there to help us out, and you're there to sort that out. And I think that kind of then gives you a purpose for what you're sort of doing.
I've always said that when things go wrong, that's your time to shine. If you're delivering all the time, you can just get used to it. But actually, when something goes wrong, it's like, right, how are we going to deal with it?
Run the best restaurant in the world until people complain, can't you? You know, at the end of the day. And I think you're absolutely right there. That for me is the acid test. It's if you've got a genuine complaint, not just trying it on, but if you've got a genuine complaint, how do they deal with the complaint? You know, that is a good test of a business. And you see some businesses that are, you know, that just don't make a fuss, and others that get it very wrong and turn something that's relatively minor into a real big, you know, into a big hand grenade, don't they?
Well, you know, I've spoken about this many times on the podcast about having an annual cull of clients, because, you know, they're going to drag you away from your good clients, you know, if they don't appreciate you too good. Do you know what I mean? And I think as the years go on, you kind of outgrow some clients, and you're looking for different projects and stuff. But never forget the ones that obviously took you there. But if there's not a cultural fit, I tend to call it, then maybe there's a time to pull away.
I think the other thing is, you know, what you've got to watch as well is that if you lead on business development, which I do in our business, and you build up that rapport with an initial client, it's how you manage that process, and this sounds a little bit negative, but it's how you then bring that client into the overall business that can be quite tricky.
Okay.
Because I mean, and I don't mind, I don't mind this, but we've got quite a lot of customers that we picked up over the years that still like to potentially deal with me.
Why not?
I thought you were about to say why then, I mean, which is fine, but I can't be everywhere and I can't be all things, and I'm very, very conscious about that. And I don't have any, ultimately I don't have an issue with that, because I'll have a different relationship and a different level than perhaps some of the staff will. And I'll be able to just pick the phone up and say, look, we need to just cut through this and deal with it. Whereas, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas they'll probably have much more of a worker sort of relationship with them. So I'm always conscious about that, because what I don't want to do is to effectively pass them on or let them down or do those things. But at the same time, I've got to be very careful that I'm not diluted.
Yes.
And this isn't the Carl Buckley show. They should be working with Urban River because they want to work with Urban River. I accept that on day one, I am the face of Urban River, but I think that's another issue in a relatively small business, that it needs to be the entity and not the individual that businesses are engaging with. Now, we've got obviously plenty of staff who pick up the slack pretty quickly and start to build that rapport. But that's something that I think is super important. And that's not just because of me. I think that whoever's in that sales development and that sharp end is always going to be building, is always going to be building those sort of initial reactions.
It's all about the handover, I think, isn't it? If you can hand it over nicely. Right, I'm looking at the time here, and I don't know if Lindsay's going to tell me off. But I mean, people are going to stay all night, really, couldn't they? Because they love you. But I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you. And then fine.
Okay.
Don't look so scared. I mean, actually, if anybody wants to put some questions in the comments for Carl, and no holds barred, he said during the week on LinkedIn. Absolutely. I think he said. So go for it. Throw some in.
Anything.
Describe a decision you made that was unpopular and how you handled implementing it.
Changing our early finish from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on a Friday.
Wow. Nasty man.
We used to finish at 1 o'clock on a Friday, and I recognised very early on that what was happening is staff were coming in and saying, well, there's no point starting that because we're going home soon. They were saying this at 8:45, and I was like, well, hold on, this is getting a bit nuts. So what we needed to do is to take a 4-hour into a 6-hour slot and work it back across the week.
Right.
So there was a little bit of, kick in the belly, I think, but I think that everybody recognized, because essentially what we were doing is we were just writing Fridays off, which when you multiply it by everybody was, wasn't great.
Do you know, I've found working in a manufacturing environment, looking forward to 1 o'clock, but Friday was always really busy. And I found that you really pushed on a Friday because you were watching the clock for 1 o'clock. Maybe not you guys then, because they'll be watching, no doubt. Yeah. Tell me about a time you were reprimanded or criticised for your performance.
Okay. Do you want me to name the person and name the company?
No, I don't.
Okay. When I was working in consultancy a long time ago, and I was working for my direct manager. I was working for Manchester Royal Infirmary on a management consultancy contract, and my direct manager said to me, he just sat me down one day, and we were doing, it was great work, and we'd pitch for the work and whatever, and he just sat me down one day and said, just to let you know, you'll know you're doing a good job unless I pull you to one side and bollock you.
All right.
And that was his way. There was never any praise. There was never any thanks. It was like, as long as I don't give you a good hiding sort of thing, then you're on the straight and narrow.
Wow.
The guy's name was Des O'Neill.
It
stuck with me.
I thought we weren't going to mention him.
He won't know. It stuck with me, and that was it didn't hurt me or anything, but I thought, okay, just went into the filing cabinet of life, and that was, to give you an idea, that will have been 95. That was 26 years ago.
It's funny, like in the 90s, management styles were very different, and I think they went on courses for it, and I think they were deliberately not touchy-feely or cuddly with you. I think there was that kind of upstairs, downstairs. Quick story, I always remember working for a lady called Nancy. There you go, Nancy's name's out now. She could get you to do anything. These are before
we're sure we want to go down this road.
These are before the days of like NLP and stuff.
Yes.
Nancy would come with a power suit on, right? Power dress, beautiful hair. And she would tell you something in a beautiful American accent. But while she did it, she'd nod at you. Before you realized you were nodding as well. And she just actually got you to do something which was atrocious. People going, Really clever management style. Best and worst piece of advice.
You can hear the cogs.
I can hear the cogs. I know it's getting late.
The best piece of advice: be yourself.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and that's throughout your life, not just business. Just be yourself. We're all Marmites, aren't we? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Worst piece of advice was to go and get into business with. I was recommended and advised to go and set the business up with this was way before what I'm doing now, with an individual.
Okay. That
I quickly realized that he was a gangster.
Right.
Literally.
Really?
Yeah. So and it was probably a podcast for another day. For 2 years was a very, very dicey situation.
Wow, yeah.
So
maybe that's a story for around the forest fire.
Yes,
with more whiskey, maybe. So before we go, then, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you might want to share?
Not really. No, I think that I suppose I'd like to think that what this year has taught this, I'm going to finish on this real philosophical thing, which I hadn't planned on. You like, I'd like to think that what this year has taught us, both business and personally, is for us. It's okay to perhaps not be running in top gear all the time.
Yeah,
and that's actually what I've actually learned, is that by not doing everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour all the time, you can actually be more efficient. And I think that just to sort of have that respect for people, and just to sort of treat people in the way that they, that they should be, that you should deal with people, do unto those and all that. Because I think that actually before the end of this year, personally speaking, and I think the people I talk to, we'd all got as businesses into a state of mind where we're all on this gerbil wheel. Nobody really knew why they were doing it, what they were doing. Everyone's doing everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And as awful as it sounds, and I'm not saying it's a good thing that's come along, but what it has done is it's reset and it's redressed the balance. And I know it's obviously there's a lot of businesses have been hit massively for all sorts of reasons. But what I think it has done, and what I think it will do, is it will refocus on how, what, who, where, and I think that can only be a good thing. That can only be a good thing, and to be, and to maintain that the glass is half full. It's very easy to be negative about what's going on, but we've all dealt with this. We'll all come through it in one way or another, and things, will be different. Please, nobody keeps saying when we get back to how things were and when we get back to the normal.
It's gone.
That's gone. This has been a paradigm shift. And I think that we'll look back at this as a real watershed and think, you know what, actually, it was awful at the time, but it's made the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Apart from the fact we can't have hugs and selfies and handshakes, which is destroying us, absolutely destroying us. But, you know, you just have to keep on trucking and get through it. And of course, you know, we're not downstairs. We're not downstairs like this. You know, back in the day, we'd all be downstairs, wouldn't we? Having fun and watching this live. And you know, it is, we've been trying to get Carl for about 3 or 4 years now. And it would have been great to do it live. But maybe we'll do it again. We'll do it again live in front of the audience.
Exactly. We're
going to keep going, though, at some of Tyneside Invest Tech Talks, because we've got the 10th of December. Remember, we've got Sue Balfour, CEO of Katie Sue Designs, who's going to come back and share her journey across taking her business model online. So then, thank you so much for watching. Thanks, Carl, for,
no problem,
as the comments have said, very humble, very straightforward, shoots from the hip. Quick comment there. The glass is always half full in South Shields, South Tyneside. I agree. It certainly is. And we've got some fantastic companies who are doing so well, and actually some companies during this pandemic who've innovated and actually come out on top, which is great because they're so flexible and agile, and, you know, very proud of a lot of them. Right then, okay.
Okay.
Are we going to head off then?
We are.
Right, okay. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you on the 10th of December.